Thank you. Thank you. So, bring your ideas to prototype with vibe coding. Before we begin, let me introduce myself. I'm George. I'm a marketer, not a developer, so this whole presentation comes from that point of view. And now that I have introduced somewhat myself, I would like to ask if there is anyone who is also not a developer here. If you can raise your hands. Okay, I see a few hands. Okay, perfect. So, let us start from the beginning, the actual case. This is more of a journey on how I use vibe coding in order to solve an actual business case. A few months ago, the leadership team of a company that I work with decided to gather all the video feedback and testimonials they had from their clients in order to find insights and data that could help marketing and product teams to, for example, the product teams to find issues or features that delight the customers and double down their efforts on them. Furthermore, marketing teams could also use the video testimonials in order to better market the product and the company. After a lot of searching, we managed to gather a total video testimonials of 90 plus hours of video and testimonial feedback. And yes, you heard that right. That was 90 plus hours of watching something. So that meant that someone had to watch 90 plus hours of something, summarize them, and then generate insights based on those summarizations. And if you are like me, that you are not quite sure what 90 hours of something mean, you can watch the whole trilogy of Lord of the Rings with the extended scenes 10 plus times, and also have some spare time to order pizza, drinks, or gather your friends. Or if you are more like myself, a Harry Potter fan, you can watch the whole octology of Harry Potter 4 plus times and also have time to order pizza and drinks. Or, if you enjoy the occasional walk, you can go from Brussels to Amsterdam, grab a cup of coffee, and then return back to Brussels. And that will take you approximately 92 hours. So yeah, I was not very enthusiastic about the idea of doing that myself, but the fact is that it was an actual business problem that I had to find a solution for. Also, there was 0.0% chance that I was going to do that because I love myself and I care for my sanity. So, is there another way? And well, I did what everyone does when you have a problem and you don't know the solution. I searched the internet. And I found a few solutions, a few third-party tools. But the problem with those solutions were that the project was so big, 90 plus hours of summarization, that it cost a lot of money. And if I recall correctly, it was around 25,000 euros for the cheapest solution for around 60 hours of summarization. So it will take me approximately 30,000 euros to run this project once. So I started searching again, and this time I asked my new best tech friend, ChatGPT. Is there a more, cheap way, a more do-it-yourself way to do that without having to see 90 hours of testimonials? And in typical ChatGPT enthusiastic fashion, it told me, oh yes, of course there is. You can build your own project. And I was like, hold your horses, because as we just said, I am not a developer. So I don't quite know how to evaluate the code. Is it good code, bad code, fast, slow? I can't say. But on the other hand, what I can say is that I can evaluate the output of that product. That code. So I will have to make a very specific plan on how to go from videos to insights. And that's how we went to the action plan. But when we hear about action plans, we have a more structured way of thinking about big problems turning into smaller problems, and those smaller problems turning into tiny problems, and then start to solving those problems. But in reality, the first iterations of a plan look more like this. A notebook with a lot of red ink, a lot of scratches, scrap plans, then start again. As you can see, I have a few groceries down there, cereal and milk for cappuccino, and a game of tic-tac-toe, because that's what a draft plan looks like. But in the end, I managed to break down the whole problem into 6 smaller ones, first get the videos. That was an easy one. I already had the videos, so yay for me. Problem one solved. Then split those smaller videos into these bigger videos, because most of those videos of the testimonials were 2 hours long. They have gathered them together, so I had to split them again in order to avoid timeout errors. So split those big MP4 files into smaller MP4, turn those MP4 files into MP3, then turn those MP3 files into TXT via a transcript tool, then combine those TXTs back together, and then use an LLM to summarize the big text. And also, in order to, start solving each of the steps, I had to create a very simple and very straightforward workflow. Discuss with ChatGPT each step of the problem. For example, how to break big MP4 files into smaller chunks. And then ChatGPT will generate a snippet that does that exact thing. I will paste that snippet into, for example, Google Colab. I will test the code, and if the code is successful, I will test a little bit more and then move on to the next problem. If it's not, and it will probably generate an error code or a logic error, I will copy-paste the error to ChatGPT. It will, of course, tell me, oh, yes, you are right, that's the correct way to do it. It will generate another snippet, and then I will test the snippet again, and the circle starts again. So in the end, I end up with that action plan, the big problem, turn 90 hours of videos into insights, then smaller ones, get videos, big to smaller videos, turn them to audio, create transcripts, combine those transcripts, and summarize them, and then have a small workflow for each one of the steps. So now that we have established the actual plan, let's talk about the tools, or I will prefer to call them my team. And as Brad Pitt said in The Inglourious Basterds, or Nick Fury in The Avengers, I'm putting together a special team. And my special team consists of 5 members. 4 of them are mandatory for this specific project. 1 of them is optional but recommended. Let me start with the leader, the heart of the problem, the language. Python. Python is a simple, reliable, and easy to understand for a non-developer language, especially if it's in smaller parts, so it made perfect sense to use it. Also, there are already libraries for most of the tasks that I wanted to solve, so Python it is. Next, the platform. For this case, I used Google Colab because also it's a very easy solution. It's plug and play. You don't have to install anything. You just copy-paste your code, test it, and if it works, it works. Moving on, the LLM. As you have already guessed, I used ChatGPT. There is no specific reason why I use ChatGPT. It's just that I was already paying for that tool, so it made sense to use it, to see at least for the first prototype if it works or it doesn't. ChatGPT will generate the code. It will also debug the code, so sometimes there was a problem here, but we managed to pull through. Next, we have the OpenAI platform, where I will use the APIs, specifically 2 models. Transcript API from OpenAI platform to transcribe the MP3 files into TXT, and then the classic chat model, where it will summarize the end TXT file, the final TXT file. Last but not least, this is an optional step. In order to create, I used a platform like Replit, or if you prefer, you can use another, for example, Lovable, in order to turn the already neat code into something more user-friendly. Specifically to turn this already beautiful snippet into something easier to the eye for the non-developer, something like this. Final but very important step is that I need to trust but verify the result. As I have already said, I cannot evaluate the quality of the code, but I can evaluate the quality of the outcome. So in order to make sure that the transcripts were correct, I took 5 hours of the 90-hour project. I did the summarizations myself, and I also generated the insights myself in order to create a benchmark to evaluate against them the results of the code. Now, back to the results. Now that we have discussed the action plan and the tools, let's discuss the actual results. In terms of working hours, it was a resounding success, at least for me, because I tend something that could be a lot of weeks, a week-long or month-long project, at least 90 hours of, as I said, listening and watching, certainly 10 plus hours of summarizing, and if I can guess, at least another 10 hours of insight generating, and turning it to 10 hours of total project, 5 hours of thinking about the solution and building the solution, and as I said just before, 5 hours of trust but verifying. So, in the end, I managed to get better results, more consistent results in 1/10 of the time. It's actually a very cost-efficient solution because I went from something that will cost me 25 to 30,000 euros to 20 to 30 euros of worth of API calls. So it made very sense in terms of economics. And most importantly, I managed to keep my sanity because if I hadn't found that solution, I would have to probably watch the 90 hours myself. So who will be sane after watching 90 hours of watching anything, even Lord of the Rings 10 times in a row? So here is that. The not so good, which is actually not bad, but it's more of a warning. This is a prototype. And what I mean by this is a prototype is that it's not a production-ready application. And what that means, it means that, well, it breaks a lot. There are a lot of files that could not be uploaded, wrong namings. Sometimes, for unknown reasons, the files were saved in different folders that I have designated to. So, as you can imagine, it required a lot of human supervision. And not just human supervision, someone who actually wrote that prototype. But, in the end, as I see it, prototyping with vibe coding is a very nice way to go from place A to place B, not by building a very robust solution, but by building a raft. Or if you want to go, for example, you can do it from place A to place B, you can go walking or running, and it will take you 90 to 100 hours of running. Or you can use a bicycle, like the solution I just showed you. That, of course, it needs constant human supervision. If you don't watch where you go with your bicycle, you will probably fall off some bridge. But you will go faster than just walking. So, what I would like to leave you with, it's that, as I said, vibe coding with Python and ChatGPT is a great way to bring your ideas to life. It's a very cost-efficient way to do that, but you also need to be aware of the potential dangers. And of course, trust, but verify. Thank you very much.